than 5. Be honest. Be honest. Wow, really? Goodness, that surprises me. Okay. Sit down if you ate less than 10 Easter eggs. Well, there's 3 members of my family standing up, including myself. Sit down if you ate less than 20. Well done, Annie. Good job. Appreciate your honesty. So I hope everyone had a good Easter. Yeah. As we know, Fata did sing Chantal to me, his girlfriend, and she said yes. An Indian, a Kiwi, a Polynesian, a Brazilian, and a Latino went on a 2,000-kilometre road trip. This is not a joke. This is a true story. They wanted to go to the most eastern, western, southern and northern point of the North Island in 36 hours. Well, 2 out of 4 ain't bad, boys. On their way up to Cape Reinga, they said, oh yeah, no, we didn't get there. We stopped at Kohu Kohu. And I was like, where? Kohu Kohu. It's like, okay. I go up to the top, to Kaitaia, which is the most northern town of New Zealand. I think I've done it for my work about 30 times in the last 6 years, and I've never heard of Kohu Kohu, so I had to look it up. Population of 180, that includes the dogs. They went there, they wanted to get some dinner, but there was no shops in the village. There was a pub and that was closed. But they had a great time anyway. Yeah. And there's a song been written about their trip. It is an old song. It's not written about their trip, but it's about their trip. It's called "I've Been Everywhere, Man." Yeah, does anyone know that song? Oh yeah. Okay, it's an old one. So the chorus is this: I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. Crossed the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've travelled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Well done, boys. Good job. The title of tonight's lesson is "With All of Your Heart." Now, I don't get to preach too often, so I'm a little bit out of practice. So, if you don't really like my preaching, come back on Sunday because there'll be a different preacher. For thousands of years, every morning and evening, Jewish people have prayed the same well-known words in expressing their devotion to God. This prayer is called the Shema. I have sent this lesson out. It's gone to a lot of people. I have changed the lesson a bit since I sent it out. So you may not be able to follow it, but for the members of the church, if you can share it with those others that are here. And the prayer we find in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4, and it is simply, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength." That is the prayer. They say it over and over and over again. But then the Bible goes on to say, the next verse, "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates." To live this out today, or in the Jewish antiquity time, requires you to view the Bible in not just a sacred way, but also to study it deeply so you can actually apply it properly to your life, because you can apply it improperly to your life as well. So we're going to start off today by doing a bit of an in-depth study of the word heart and what it means. Now, I should put my glasses on, but I'm a little bit concerned about putting my glasses on. Because on Sunday, when I was song leading, they were like this, and I didn't realise. So they were crooked, and I looked really stupid, and no one told me. However, so I'm going to keep them off unless I really can't see what I'm reading. So in Hebrew, the word that we translate in the Old Testament as heart is lavav. It often shortened to the word lev. To the Jewish people, they thought the heart was the single key element of the entire body. Not only did it run the body physically, but they believed that it ran it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. In ancient times, and we're talking 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the knowledge of the importance of the brain was not known to mankind at all. In fact, in the Hebrew language, there is no word for the word brain. They simply do not have one. So when we read the Old Testament, and sometimes we see the word mind, that is still the same word, lavav, but it's translated for us into the word mind. The knowledge of the brain and its significance, its importance in the human anatomy, wasn't figured out until the Greeks figured it out in the 5th and 6th century BC. Chalk another one up for the Greeks. By the time Jesus came around, that knowledge existed. From the day, and so the knowledge had changed since the book of Deuteronomy was written. And I believe that's why in Matthew, when he's quoting Deuteronomy 6, which we just read, he changes it in Matthew 22 to read, Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind." He changed the word from strength to mind. And the word mind, it sort of just means thinking or understanding. But back to the heart. The Jewish people believed that all of humans' intellectual activity takes place in their physical heart. Yes, they understood its physical importance. It was a generator of life. In 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 37, it says, "Then in the morning when the Baal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone." They also believed it was the centre of their intellectual life, where you made sense of the of the world. In the book of Proverbs 14:33, wisdom dwells in the heart, it tells us. In 1 Kings 3:9, it says, Solomon asked for a discerning heart to distinguish right from wrong. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, the heart is where you felt your emotions. You felt pain like Hannah did when she couldn't have any children. In fact, the word broken heart comes from ancient biblical Hebrew. You also experience fear in your heart. Your heart can melt or be distressed. Your heart can even be depressed. But then on the flip side, your heart is where you experience joy. In Hebrew, to be happy is to have a good heart, or to have a heart of joy. In Jeremiah 15:16, "As your words came to me, I drank them in, and they filled my heart with joy and happiness." But wait, there's more. Are you still awake? I hope so. In biblical Hebrew, the heart is where you make choices, motivated by your desires. So David had it in his heart to build a temple for God. In 1 Kings 8. Your heart is where your affections were centered. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Psalm 37:4. And if you really want something to go after, it is like what Nathan said to David. Whatever is in your heart, go and do it. In the Bible, the heart is the center of all parts of human existence. Guard your heart, Proverbs 4 tells us, because from it overflows your whole life. After watching a whole generation turn away from God and became so evil that they even killed their own children, sacrificed them. Jeremiah was sent to write that the human heart was fundamentally broken. The human heart is deceitful above all else, he writes. Who can even understand it? This is why in the imagination of the Hebrew prophets, that only hope for humanity is the total renewal of the human heart. Moses said to the people, circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer. David, after he committed murder and adultery, pleaded to God to create in me a pure heart. In Ezekiel, God wanted to give his people a new heart of flesh that could feel. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Ezekiel 36. And that brings us back to that original prayer that we do, the Shema. Every day, God's people are called to devote to God their whole body and mind, their feelings and their desires, their future and their failures. This is what is meant to love the Lord the God with all of your heart. So we have a simple question. I have a simple question for you tonight. Are you loving the Lord your God with all of your heart? I don't know if I'm going to have 1 point or 2 points tonight. Depends how long 1 point goes for. But point number 1 is what is in your heart. It's a personal question. What is in your heart? Deuteronomy chapter 8, starting in verse 1. Be careful to follow every command I am giving you today, so that you may live and increase and may enter and possess the land the Lord promised on oath to your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. This is what Moses told the people of Israel before they were about to enter the promised land. And he uses the word test here. Testing. It's an interesting phrase, and we don't understand it sometimes. There's one weird thing about this verse though. One totally strange thing. It says that God wants to know what is in your heart. Well, if God's the creator of everything, doesn't he know what's in my heart? That's the unusual thing about this passage. You know, for us, testing is something that we're graded on if you're a student. You get an A? Yay, I got an A! Fantastic, I'll tell the world. Great, I got a B. B's awesome. B is great. I'm happy with the B. C? I just passed. But I passed. Doesn't matter. C's as good as an A. I passed. Or I failed, and we don't tell anyone. But in biblical times, testing is something different. It's not about a pass or a fail. It's not about a grade. God is not interested in grading your heart. He's not interested in that at all. This passage tells us that God led the Israelites into the wilderness to humble them and to test them in order to know what is in their heart. The Hebrew word for know is yada. Yada. It means to perceive, to discern, to distinguish. He wants to experience what is in your heart. It's an intimate kind of knowing. It's not theoretical. It's intimate. God wants to know what is in your heart today. Not intellectually, but he wants to experience what is in your heart. So He will test it. God will test our hearts to see what is in there. You know, our hearts get tested all the time. All the time. Even right now, some of you are being tested. And the test is probably, can I stay awake? Can I focus? That is a form of a test. And every test is a double opportunity. There's two aspects of a test. The first is that through the testing, we get to give the gift of what's in our heart to God. I remember when I was a very young Christian. I am talking 1994. 1993. 93 or 94. I know. I was 28. I had lived a pretty sinful life up until then. I was in London. I became a disciple, a Christian in London, and the church that I was in London, there was 2,000 people. There was like 8 regions. It was a huge church. But there were some incredible people there. And I was at a train station, and I was sitting down. I don't know why I was there. I was sitting down waiting for someone, I think. And one of the other ladies from the church, a couple of years older than me, and there was a very quiet train station, and she came in, and with the system over there, like they had like 6 different zones for the train lines and the bus lines, and you could have like a zone 1 and 2 pass that would take you anywhere within zone 1 or 2. But if you went out of that zone, that was okay. You just need to pay an excess. Anyway, she arrived at the station. So she lived in the city, so she only had that 1 and 2 pass. She had moved out of zone 2 and she had come into zone 3 or 4. It was a very quiet station. There was no one there. She didn't see me. I was behind her. And then she came up to where the booth is, where there's supposed to be someone. There was no one there, and she sort of yelled out, "Excuse me, is anyone there?" And no one came. She waited a few seconds. "Excuse me, is anyone there?" No one came. She did it again. "Excuse me, is anyone there?" And then finally someone came, and she paid her excess fee, which was, I don't know, 80 pence or £1 or something like that, not a huge amount. But what really struck me is just her integrity and honesty. She could have walked out, no one would have known any difference. No one would have even cared. But to her, it was a test. It was a test to see, if no one was looking, am I still going to be honest? Am I going to be real? I think of Shelley in terms of testing. Shelley is a great friend to all of us in the church. Shelley has had one of the hardest 2 years of anyone I've known. She's had it tough. She's had family members die. Her mother's been very sick in hospital. There's been other sickness in her family. It's been incredible. But I have never ever seen Shelley without joy on her face. Never. Her situation has been testing her, and yet she has given a gift to God of the joy that she possesses. I think of Kevin. Actually, that's Shelley's boyfriend. Funny that. Kevin's a funny guy. I don't mean hilarious. No. Kevin's awesome. Yeah. Kevin to me is, he doesn't have, excuse me. Sorry about this. There are people in here that have better social abilities than Kevin. Okay? One of the things that we do as a church is a lot of you are here because people invited you. And then people would have, after they invited you, a couple of days later or a week later, given you a call and talked to you and encouraged you to come along. Maybe you've come along to Bible discussions on Friday and you're now coming on Wednesday. Some of you are here, I know, are studying the Bible and learning more about Christianity. We are always challenged that when we meet someone and they're interested in coming, that we should talk to them later and build a relationship with them, try and find out how they're doing spiritually, if there's anyone a bit lazy, and we text people instead of calling. Kevin will only text if he's called someone and they don't answer. he will always call. His heart for people is so big that he wants to form a relationship and love people. It's so easy for him, I'll just text this guy. No, he'll call him every time. And that's why he brings people that he hasn't seen for 5 years come to church, because he has that sort of heart. His heart for people is his gift to God. Finally, I think of Whanaki, whose birthday it is today. Whanaki, when you get to know her, she actually has unfortunately, a lot of health challenges. Really, really tough. Sometimes she can't make it to church because her back's bad, her insides are bad, something's bad. But she does as well as anyone, inviting people to come to church and getting people to come along to study the Bible, because she does it online. Levin's here tonight because she reached out to Levin that way. Her health is not an excuse for not doing the right thing. And when she's sick, it's still her gift to God to do the right thing. You know, we all have the opportunity to pull back our hearts when we're met with obstacles. And that is the challenge that we face to live a faithful life. The second opportunity that we have is that with each test God gives us to see what's in our hearts is the opportunity for us to learn a new lesson as well. Is Thornton here? He's not here. Wow. Okay. I was having a talk to Thornton on Sunday, and I noticed on Sunday, I think I was just walking down this way and there was a homeless person here. Thornton bowled straight up to the person, talked to them for 5 minutes. She's incredible at doing that. Absolutely incredible. And I talked to her and I said, you know, you are so good at this. When you do it, you need to take other people with you in the church and do it with them. Teach them your skill. Teach them your ability. You know, it's easy when we see homeless people to pull our hearts back a little bit. Yeah, look, I wouldn't necessarily recommend every woman approaching every guy that's homeless in the street. But approaching other women, yeah, absolutely. I think you should do that. And I think for guys, hey, we should approach everyone just for conversation. You know, we see a lot of the homeless people, we see them hanging out together, and we can think, oh, they have their friends. Well, they're only doing it because they've got no one else to talk to. Often with the homeless, they're not their friends, but they want to talk to someone. But it's our job, it's our gift, and we can learn when we talk to these people. Hey, it's a new person. Their life is just as valuable to God's as yours is. And they are there to test our hearts. Another story from London, and this happened before I was a Christian, but this is an absolute hilarious story. Some guys in the church that I was involved with over there were doing some street preaching. And you know, that's challenging to stand up on a box in the middle of a busy street and just start talking about God. You look at people do that and you think they're really weird. But these guys, they had a plan. And their plan was, a couple of them, there were 3 guys. A couple of them were going to get into a bit of a fight and a bit of a scuffle. And then one of them he had like an empty plastic milk crate. And he was going to stand on it once they had a fight and got people's attention, stand up and start talking about Jesus. Wow. That was his plan. It went a little bit wrong though when the 2 guys started to have a fight and the police turned up. However, Tim still got on this crate and started talking about Jesus with the police there. The police were not impressed and they took them all down to the to the police station to give them a warning. But it's an opportunity to learn something.
Come on, Eden.
Yeah, I think of, and Margot shared it before about Tiffany and her sharing. Tiffany is Chinese. Tiffany, English is not her first language. She does pretty well, but she still has difficulty or challenges with it. But she's as bold as a lion when it comes to talking to people. Seriously, she is bold. I was out with her on, what day was that? Saturday? No, Saturday? We were out last week. We were out sharing last week. Woman at a bus stop, Indian lady at a bus stop, talk there. A blonde white lady sitting outside the shopping centre. She stopped and talked to. She talked to everyone that she could. Just incredibly bold. And when we do that, when we share our faith, we actually learn so much about ourselves. We learn about other people, and we learn how to communicate with people about God. So, testing is a good thing. How do you do when your heart is tested? Do you pull it back, or do you plough on ahead looking to grow? Point number 2. This is the one that I just wrote because my lesson is a bit short. It's about David and Goliath. I don't have a title for point number 2, I'm sorry. I hadn't thought of a title. So it's not in your notes. So turn to 1 Samuel chapter 17. If you don't know about the story of David and Goliath, it's simply a story about David who becomes a king of Israel. And at this time in his life, he's only 16. He's a teenager. He's younger than all of you. And Israel is going up to fight against another group of people, another nation called the Philistines. And their champion is Goliath. And you can tell by the name, he's a pretty big dude, okay? He's huge. And everyone in the nation is scared of him. In 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 8, it reads, Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul?" Saul was their present king. "Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. So the heart of the whole Israelite nation, or all the men that had gone out to fight against the Philistines, had been tested, and their hearts had been found wanting, vacant. Then, in one of these times when Goliath came out, David was there, and his heart was steadfast. In verse 40 of the same chapter. Then he took his staff in his hand, this is David, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in hand approached the Philistine. And then he goes out and he kills Goliath. So the sling they're talking about, it's a long leather cord, 2 long leather cords with a pouch on the end, and you swing it around your head, and then you can release the stone. These slings were so dangerous that the best users of them could hit a target from 100 meters away. 100 meters. That's how far they could throw the stones out of those slings. You know, they've been practicing it for years and years and years. But this story, it's a simple story, but it's a powerful story. It's got actually a lot of multiple layers that you don't actually get to start with. But once you learn more and more, you see it. One of the things about the story is that we know that from the book of Judges, it's actually Saul should be facing Goliath, not David. Saul is the one. So in Judges chapter 20, verse 15, it reads, "At once the Benjamites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns." So King Saul is a Benjamite. He is from the tribe of Benjamin. This is his people. This is his tribe that he is descended from. In addition to 700 able young men from those living in Gibeah. Among all these soldiers, there were 700 select troops who were left-handed, each of whom could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. So, of the 12 tribes of Israel, the whole nation of Israel, it is the Benjamites who were the experts at the sling. They were the ones that could sling a stone and hit a hare from great distances. Saul is a Benjamite. This was not lost on any of the Israelites there. That David, who's not a Benjamite, he was from the tribe of Judah. David is the one that goes out with his sling to kill Goliath. They knew that it should have been Saul. But David was the one whose heart didn't melt. Saul is the one whose heart melted. How is God testing your heart? We've really got to ask that question. You know, Saul's heart was tested and faltered. David's heart was tested and he stepped up to the challenge. How is God testing you? Is He testing you by asking you to put Him first? What is stopping you from doing that? Is He testing you by asking you to go out and share your faith and talk to people and find out about their lives and love them and try and get them to study the Bible? What are your obstacles from doing that? Is He testing you to share the sin that is in your heart? The things that you don't really want to talk about to anyone. And unless you do that on a regular basis, there is struggles in your life. Everyone has struggles in their life. And so often we just aren't humble enough to talk about it. We are all in the same boat. We all have issues. Is He testing you to be humble and to get advice on things in your life that you're really out of depth of? You know, one of the reasons why I became a Christian was that this was me. This was totally me. I went to university. I was quite intelligent, but I went to university and I struggled because I never, ever, once that I can remember, not even once, did I actually go and get help from study experts to find out how I could get the best out of myself. I totally relied on myself. And it failed. It took me 5 years of one course to get a 4-year degree. Good save. Because I wasn't humble to get advice. Advice is free. Advice is cheap. And it is that. It's advice. The Bible tells us that many advisors make victory sure. Why many advisors? Because you might get advice that just doesn't work for you. But if you talk to enough people, you will find something that absolutely works for you in your life.
Right.
And just finally, none of us here are good at everything. Relatively. Okay? Pascal might be better at 10 things than I am, but there may be one thing that I'm better than him at. In terms of a relationship with God and having a relationship with God, you've just got to start, or improving your relationship with God, start from the point that you are at now. This very point. Gather other spiritual people around you. Talk about how God tests your heart and how you do with those tests. Be humble to advice and meet the challenges that you are facing with other friends. Thank you very much. So that's it for tonight. We're just going to meet in our Bible discussion groups that we have. Feel free to stay around and join those groups with the people that invited you. Thank you.